So it's finally here, the brand new Yeezy 350 iteration, the 350 V2 Mono, in this case the Mono Ice, and I've got to say it's one of the largest changes on a pair of 350s, but is it one of the best? Let's find out. What's up everybody, I'm Seth Fowler, and today I'm reviewing the upcoming Adidas YEEZY 350 V2 Mono Ice. So as you probably saw in the title, not only am I going to review a pair of the 350 V2 Monos, but I'm also giving a brand new pair away. So if you want the chance to win one of these pairs for free for yourself, make sure to stay tuned till the end of the video to find out how. But I can honestly say that this is a pair of sneakers that I've been looking forward to for a very long time. In fact, since we first saw leaks of the sneaker when I honestly wasn't even sure if this shoe was going to be real. I mean, the first 350 V2 was released back in 2016, and since then, we've had like very little iterations on that silhouette, but nothing major. And to be fair, while the overall shape and general construction of the shoe remains relatively the same, visually, this is a pretty big overhaul. As you probably already know, the Mono Pack releases on June 24th for a retail price of $220 and comes in 3 different colorways. And also, if you'd like to grab a pair of these early or just check the resale prices on GOAT, I've made sure to leave an affiliate link in the description below. Now, unfortunately, this release is going to be a regional release, which means that each colorway releases in a different region. My favorite colorway, the Mono Ice colorway, which of course is the shoe we have here, is releasing in the Americas on June 24th. There's also the Mono Clay colorway, which is releasing in Asia, and the Mono Mist colorway, which is releasing in Europe. And as far as the naming of the pack goes, I'm assuming Mono stands for monochromatic, which means that the entire shoe is made up of tones of the same color. So the Ice colorway comes in tonal blues, the Clay colorway comes in tonal oranges, and the Mist colorway comes in tonal browns. Or maybe it's tonal grays, I'm not exactly sure. It looks more brown online, so that's what I'm going with. But what I like most about the Mono Pack is not the actual color scheme itself, but the way that they changed up the materials and added this super organic looking underlay. But before we dive any deeper into the sneaker itself, let's take a quick look at the box. So as you probably could have guessed, the shoe comes in a standard Yeezy 350 cardboard box. I was kind of hoping that it would come in like a clear box or something a little bit different because the shoe is different, but no, it's your standard plain cardboard with 350 printed across the top and Boost printed on one of the sides. It's still a pull-out box or a drawer box, none of that's changed, and then of course you've got your size tag on one end. Now the official name of this new colorway is Mon Ice, Mon Ice, Mon Ice, presumably standing for Mono Ice. But that's pretty much all there is to it. Unfortunately, the box remains the same. Kind of hoping for something different, but I don't know why I was expecting that. But now getting back to the 350 V2 Mono Ice itself, let's jump into this sneaker and find out what materials make up this shoe and why it looks so crazy different. So the first and most glaring difference between this shoe and any of the previous 350 V2s is the fact that they no longer use Primeknit on the upper. Instead, it seems like Adidas has transitioned completely to some kind of transparent mesh material. This material kind of feels similar to what's usually on the side stripe of 350 V2s. It feels a little bit less coarse, like a little bit smoother, a little bit thinner, but it's got a similar look to it. I mean, let's be real, it's not Primeknit, it's not as soft as Primeknit. The Primeknit on 350s isn't that soft though, so it's not a huge deal. I don't know, I don't mind the feel of it. It's still pretty soft to the touch, and I really like the look of it, so I'm down with it. Obviously, this colorway is the Ice colorway, which means it comes in a very light blue or ice color. And I've got to say, because this material is transparent, it really gives it an actual like icy feel. Like when you move the shoe around, you get all these crazy effects. Like you get some light behind it in certain areas, and certain areas get darker. It just looks so cool. Now on foot, it's not going to look as cool because you're really only going to see your foot through the shoe and your sock, which to be fair, if you're wearing apothecary socks, it'll look even cooler than it does right now. But I don't know, when it doesn't have a foot in it, it's got this really cool sort of transparent effect that I really dig. Running down the center of the shoe, you've still got your visible seam, which connects the 2 different sides of the sneaker together. On this particular construction, it doesn't have that sort of visible stitch that it usually has in the Primeknit versions. Instead, it's just a very clean seam that looks like it's stitched on the other side and then covered by some sort of like fuse overlay. I've got to say, it does look a little bit cleaner and simpler than a standard pair of 350s. However, I kind of like that knitted detail. It really made the shoe look handmade. This one obviously doesn't look as handmade. It looks more like grown in a lab. As I'm sure you could see, underneath this blue transparent mesh, you've got this really crazy looking organic underlay. Now this underlay seems to be made up of like a soft felt material, at least that's what it feels like on the inside of the shoe, but what makes this detail unique is the way that it's cut. It's got these punch outs throughout the entire underlay that kind of look like, you know those commercials when you're pulling like cheese apart, like in a grilled cheese commercial, and it kind of has like the strands of cheese all connected to each other? That's what this looks like. I don't know, it's got this very alien look to it. It's very organic looking. Some people love it like myself, other people probably hate it, but this look is definitely in line with Kanye's more organic aesthetic moving forward. And while some people might not like it, it definitely is unique. And I think for a lot of people, that's what draws them to Yeezys. It's the uniqueness, and let's be real, it's a little bit of the hype, but it definitely has a unique flavor to it. Now, one thing that's kind of bothering me a little bit is that it seems like this mesh might yellow over time. And the reason I say that is because around this bottom eyelet, there's actually a little bit of yellowing, and this shoe is brand new. I just got it in from Goat, and there's a tiny bit of yellowing right there. And I didn't think that was gonna happen, but it makes sense. If you look at Jordans from like 5-10 years ago, they have yellowing in certain mesh parts of the shoe. It's something that just happens on transparent materials, but I didn't expect it to happen this soon. It could be a fluke, it could be a stain, I'm not sure, but it is kind of a bummer. The shoe reminds me a lot of like Halo. When you go into the maw in Halo 1 and you're dealing with the flood, that's what it kind of looks like. Kind of grosses me out a little bit now that I'm thinking about it. I think the mono mist colorway would not really be for me, but in the mono ice colorway, it does kind of look like a glacier that's falling apart because of global warming. What am I talking about? Another detail that can be found on the lateral side of the shoe is the side stripe. However, unlike previous 350s, it's not a separate piece of material, it's just a slightly different color, it seems like. On the 350 V2 mono ice colorway, it comes in a darker shade of blue, and I believe on the two other colorways, it just comes in a darker shade than the rest of the upper. Unlike a lot of the Prime Knit 350 V2s, the lateral side and the medial side of the shoe are very similar. The only difference when it comes to actual patterning is this stripe, but other than that, it's a very similar look. The underlay seems to just be a mirrored image of each other, so that doesn't really change much. Then moving up in the shoe, you've got these white rope laces, which are pretty different from anything that we've seen on a previous pair of 350s or really any pair of Yeezys, and that's because it looks like it's a standard pair of laces, but it's covered in this like transparent plastic mesh, so it feels very different. It actually feels very similar to the upper of the shoe, and the one thing I don't really like about that is that these are actually harder to tie because they come untied pretty easily. There's just less friction between the laces now when you tie them, so it's easier for them to kind of slide loose. In addition to that, the lace eyelets have also changed as well. Instead of just being punch outs like they were on the Prime Knit 350s, they now have this sort of plasticky sort of eyelet circle around them, and that seems to be there just to keep the mesh from fraying. Unlike Prime Knit, this mesh would probably fray very easily, especially with laces kind of weaving in and out of them. So this kind of prevents that from happening and will probably help the shoe last a little bit longer. Then moving back in the sneaker, around the top of the ankle opening, you've got this white piping material which contrasts the upper pretty nicely and obviously is the same color as the laces, so that ties together nicely. Moving inside the sneaker, around the heel of the shoe, you've got this white sock liner that feels pretty much exactly the same as a standard pair of 350s. It still has that 3M or reflective Adidas accent on the back of the heel, but then rounding off the inside of the shoe with the insole, things do change up a little bit. And that change is that the insole now has the size tag on it. Now the reason they did that is because if they put the size tag on the upper, you would definitely see it because the upper is pretty much completely transparent. Whereas when you put it on the bottom of the shoe, you're not going to see it because your foot's going to be on top of it. The one thing that kind of stinks about that, at least in my opinion, is the fact that this is probably going to rub off or come off very easily. So it'll definitely be harder to find out what size shoe this is if you're buying a used pair because it might have rubbed off or maybe someone took out the insole. Other than that though, the insole is pretty much the same as every other 350 V2. It comes in this white material with the Adidas and Yeezy branding printed on the heel in gray. But getting into sizing, the sizing of the 350 V2 Mono Ice, and I'm assuming every sneaker in the Mono collection, is actually somewhat different from any previous 350 V2. And I've got good news, the sizing of the 350 V2 Mono Pack is now true to size, which is amazing. We've been waiting for true to size 350s for years. I'm sure you guys saw that these are a half size down from my standard size, and that's just because the only pair on instant ship was a size 8.5, so I had to try half size down, but I've got to say, the way that it fits, and from what I've heard from everyone else online, this shoe definitely fits true to size, and that's what I'd recommend grabbing. Now, it seems like the reason for that is the change in the materials, because this shoe doesn't have as much give as the other 350 V2s. They probably decided to use a different last or change up the sizing just a little bit to kind of fit people's feet better. And you know what? I'm really happy about that. It's been a long time coming. They're finally correcting the sizing on this shoe, and I kind of hope they do that with all the Yeezys moving forward. I don't think that they will because there are still some Prime Knit Yeezys coming out after these pairs, but it's nice to wish. Moving back in the shoe towards the heel, we've got a heel tab once again. This time it comes in sort of a dark grayish blue transparent plastic material. It's not completely transparent like the upper, but it's transparent enough that you can see some light through it. I don't mind this detail. I never minded the pull tabs on 350s. It is interesting that they did it in a transparent material. I think that's a nice touch because that sort of ties in with the rest of the sneaker. The color, a little bit different, but I don't mind it. It fits in with the sort of ice theme, so There you go. Then moving down on the shoe, you've got this classic Yeezy ribbed midsole that comes in a semi-transparent white rubber. Of course, underneath this rubber, you've got a full-length boost midsole, which feels great underfoot. It's not a huge amount of boost, but it does get the job done. And then moving to the bottom of the shoe, you've got more of that semi-transparent rubber. It does seem to be a slightly different shade of white, or I guess cream, than the rest of the midsole, which I guess is fine. It's slightly more yellow, which doesn't really matter. And overall, I kind of like the way that this midsole and outsole is white instead of a shade of blue, because I feel like it sort of pulls the entire upper of the shoe together with the sock liner and with the laces. Overall, the Yeezy 350 V2 Mono Ice is a nice iteration and a nice change on the Yeezy 350 V2 silhouette. Now, although I really like this new style and I think it'll be great for summer because it might be slightly more breathable than a pair of Prime Knit 350 V2s, I don't know if this shoe will have the staying power that the 350 V2s have. If you've noticed, they've become more of like an Air Force One situation. Like, there's tons of different colorways available. They're pretty easy to get at this point, but this particular version of the shoe, I don't know if it's going to be as popular as the other versions because it's not as easy to throw on. It's not as simple as the other versions. It's very out there. It's very crazy looking, and for some people like myself, that's great, but for other people, they might not like it as much. So I think it'll be interesting to see the reception of the Yeezy 350 Mono Pack, how people respond to this shoe, whether this shoe's resale prices skyrocket or whether they drop. We'll just have to wait and see what happens, but I've got to say, it's an interesting iteration and I'm into it. But now it's time to find out how you can win a brand new pair of Yeezy 350 V2 Mono Ices for yourself. So as with most of my giveaways, entering this giveaway is really easy. All you need to do is subscribe to my channel by clicking that subscribe button down below, subscribing to my tech channel, which is linked in the description below, following me on Instagram at @RealSethFowler, which I'll also make sure to leave a link to in the description below, and commenting done on the picture of this shoe on my Instagram. Like I said, all the details that you need to enter are in the description below, and the giveaway will run for 1 week from today when the video went live. So good luck, thanks so much for watching the video today. Make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet, and I'll see you all in the next one.